They threw my clothes in trash bags, said I didn't belong in my mother's house. My cousin laughed. My uncle slammed the door in my face. This isn't your home, they said. They looked at me like I was nothing, like I didn't matter. But I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just walked away, quietly. I stood at the edge of the porch. The wood beneath my feet cracked and splintered, like everything else in my life. This was my mother's house, the house where I took my first steps, where she taught me how to bake cookies in a chipped ceramic bowl, where she read me bedtime stories with her raspy, tired voice, where I believed no matter what the door would always be open to me. But now it wasn't. The door slammed in my face before I could even finish knocking. My Uncle Tom stood there with a blank stare, one hand on the frame like he was guarding something sacred. Behind him, my cousin Emily leaned against the hallway wall, sipping an iced coffee like she owned the place. "Nina," he muttered, almost annoyed, "what are you doing here?" I hesitated. I just need a place to stay for a while. He raised an eyebrow. Emily scoffed. "This isn't a shelter," she said, "and it's not your house anymore." I looked past them, into the living room. My mother's floral couch was still there. Her favorite blanket, the one I got her 2 Christmases ago, was tossed carelessly over the armrest. The whole place smelled like lemon-scented floor polish, which meant someone had cleaned. Probably Emily. "Uncle Tom," I said quietly, "I just need a little time. I'll help out. I'll find a job. I don't want charity. Just space to get on my feet." He stepped outside and closed the door behind him, now standing directly in front of me. "Your mom's gone," he said bluntly. "She didn't leave a will, no instructions, and this house she gave us the keys months ago." That wasn't true. I knew it wasn't. I was there. I held her hand as the machines beeped slower and slower. I stayed up at night to wipe her forehead with a cold cloth. I fed her soup when she could barely sit up. And on her last day, she whispered, "There's a file in my dresser for you." But I hadn't opened it yet. I couldn't, not while grief was choking the air around me. I came to the house because she always said it was ours, that no matter what happened, I would have a place to come home to. But now Tom was shaking his head like I was delusional. Emily opened the door again and threw out 2 plastic bags, my old duffel, and a grocery bag full of crumpled clothes. "You've got 3 days," Tom said. "After that, you're trespassing." They didn't even let me go inside. I bent down, picked up my bag, and walked down the street in silence. I didn't turn back. I didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me cry. At the cheapest motel on the edge of Dayton, I stared at the ceiling as the air conditioner rattled like a broken fan. The walls were yellowed. My thoughts were louder than the traffic outside. Was this really happening? They called me a leech, said I was only back for money, said I disappeared for years and now wanted a handout, but they didn't know the truth. I left because I had to, because my stepfather made it impossible to stay, because my mother told me, one tearful night, "Go chase your future, I'll be okay." And even though I miss birthdays, holidays, and Sunday dinners, the moment she needed me, I was there. Where were they? Emily didn't visit her once in the hospital. Tom barely called. But they swooped in the second she passed, took over, moved in. I unzipped my duffel bag and pulled out the manila folder my mother gave me. Inside was a handwritten letter. Her voice echoed through every line. "My sweet Nina, you've always been the strong one. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. But I wanted you to know. I made sure you'd be okay. Look in the back pocket. I added your name to the deed. It's official. Signed, notarized, and filed at the county office." My hands trembled. I checked the pocket. There it was, an official copy. Her signature, a notary stamp, and mine. Dated 2 months before she passed. I couldn't speak. My throat closed. All this time, I had been begging for space in a house that was already legally mine. I sat on the edge of the bed, blinking back tears. Then I pulled out my phone and searched for the attorney who handled Mom's affairs. "Mr. Green," I said when he picked up, "this is Nina Walker. I have a question. Do you still have the deed on file?" There was a pause, then the clack of a keyboard. "Yes," he said. "Actually, your mother came in herself. She insisted on adding your name to the property. Everything's valid. You're on the title." I smiled for the first time in days. But it wasn't joy, it was something else. Something colder, stronger. They thought I was weak, that I'd walk away like I always had. But not this time. This time, I had the papers, the proof, the law. They threw me out, but they didn't know. I was already on the deed, and I was going to take back what was mine, quietly, legally, and with no warning at all. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat on the edge of the motel bed, the folder in my lap, staring at the notary seal like it held all the power in the world. Maybe it did. That paper was everything. It was the truth in black ink. It was Mom's last word, and it was mine. They thought I came crawling back for scraps, but I had the deed. And more than that, I had time. I didn't storm back to the house, didn't yell or bang on the door. No, that's what they expected me to do. Instead, I called Mr. Green again at 8 a.m. sharp. Can I come by your office? I asked. Today. He cleared his throat, surprised. Of course, bring the documents. His office was a 10-minute walk from the motel, nestled in a strip of low-rise buildings near downtown Dayton. The sign outside was peeling. But Mr. Green. He was sharper than he looked. The kind of lawyer who remembered every line in a contract and didn't miss a comma. I slid the folder across his desk. He adjusted his glasses and opened it slowly. Yes, he said after reviewing the papers, this is all legitimate. You were added as a joint owner, which means... He looked up. You legally co-own the house, 50-50. I exhaled. It felt like I'd been holding my breath for days. What can I do about the people living there? I asked. He leaned back, hands clasped. Well, he said carefully, if they refuse to acknowledge your ownership, you can file a motion for partition or force a sale, but before that, I'd recommend a letter. Official notice, delivered by a third party. I nodded slowly. Let's do it! The letter went out 2 days later, certified mail, addressed to Thomas Walker and Emily Walker, signed by a lawyer, stamped by the county clerk. It was short, professional, and lethal. It stated that I, Nina Walker, was a co-owner of the property located at 1297 Radcliffe Avenue, that I had legal rights to the property, and that failure to acknowledge or make arrangements would result in formal legal action. No threats, just facts. And silence. Weeks passed. No reply. Emily unfriended me on Facebook. Tom blocked my number. But they never reached out. They thought if they ignored me long enough, I'd go away. They didn't realize. I'd already been gone once. I knew how to disappear. But now I knew how to come back. Stronger, smarter, and this time, I brought the law with me. A month later, I filed the motion in Franklin County Court. It was surreal, sitting in that courtroom with polished floors and buzzing lights above. I wore a thrift store blazer and the same black slacks I'd worn to Mom's funeral. My hands shook when I held the paperwork, but my voice didn't. The judge was a tall woman in her 60s with a sharp brow and a sharper tone. You're seeking formal recognition of joint ownership? Yes, Your Honor, I said. My mother legally added my name to the deed before she passed. I was removed from the property without my consent. She flipped through the documents. Everything seems to be in order. Has the other party been notified? I nodded. They received a certified letter 3 weeks ago. No response. She looked at me for a long second, then said the words I'd been waiting for. This court recognizes Nina Walker as co-owner of the property located at 1297 Radcliffe Avenue. Bang, gavel down. Just like that, it was official. I walked out of that courtroom taller than I'd ever been. Not because someone gave me anything, but because I had earned it quietly, legally. And now it was time to go home. Chess. I didn't text, didn't warn them, didn't gloat. I waited until the court officer called to confirm service of the judgment. Then I showed up on a bright Thursday morning holding the court order in my right hand and the keys in my left. It was the same key Mom gave me years ago, worn, scratched, still worked perfectly. When I stepped onto the porch, I saw Emily through the window. She froze. I knocked once. She opened the door like she was ready for a fight. Seriously, she snapped. You stalking us now? I didn't answer. I just handed her the paper. What's this? I waited, watched her read. Her lips moved silently as her eyes scanned the lines. She looked up, her face pale. You're kidding. Behind her, Tom shuffled into view, holding a cup of coffee and wearing an expression I'd never forget. It was the face of someone realizing too late. The person they thought was powerless was holding all the cards. You've got 30 days, I said. Calm, clear. After that, the court expects compliance. Tom opened his mouth to argue, but no words came out. I turned, walked down the steps, and let the door close behind me. I didn't slam it. Didn't need to, because this time, the silence was mine. I thought receiving that court order would feel like a climax, like I'd hit the high note, dropped the mic, and walked off stage to a standing ovation. But the truth, it felt like a deep, quiet breath after years of holding it in. Recognition isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's just stillness, like peace finally showing up at the door. I didn't post anything on social media, didn't announce it, didn't tag Emily or Tom. I let the silence work for me. Let the certified letter bearing the judge's signature arrive in their mailbox. Let the weight of the court's seal do all the speaking. Still, part of me braced for backlash. Emily was always reactive, sharp-tongued, quick to insult. I expected a call, a text, a tantrum. Instead, nothing. Radio silence. Until the envelope came back signed as received. That's when I knew they weren't ignoring me anymore. They were calculating, trying to figure out if I was bluffing, wondering if I had the guts to follow through. What they didn't know was that the moment I stepped into that courtroom, I'd already made my decision. I wasn't going anywhere. Oh. On the morning of the enforcement hearing, I arrived early. The courtroom was colder than usual, or maybe that was just my nerves. I wore the same thrifted blazer, but this time I brought a copy of everything. The deed, the motion, the judgment, the letter of noncompliance. Tom didn't show, neither did Emily. But their absence only made it easier. Ms. Walker, the judge said, peering over her glasses. You are seeking enforcement? Yes, Your Honor. All notices were served. Yes, signed and received. Very well. The gavel came down again, but this time it felt heavier, more final. The court grants your motion. As co-owner, you are entitled to access and control of the property. A writ of possession will be issued immediately. She looked me in the eye. And Ms. Walker, if they damage anything on their way out, document it. We'll take it from there. I nodded, heart pounding. It was official. I wasn't just recognized. I was reinstated, and now I was going home. The court officer called me 2 days later. Would you like to be present when we serve the writ? Yes, I said without hesitation. We arranged it for Friday morning, 9:30 sharp. The house looked the same from the outside. Same porch light, same cracked steps. But I was different. I stood beside the officer, holding my own copy of the order, not for proof, but for closure. Tom answered the door this time. He didn't speak, just stared like he'd aged 10 years in a month. The officer handed him the writ. You've got 7 days to vacate, he said. After that, you'll be in contempt of court. Tom didn't argue, didn't yell. He just nodded and stepped aside. I walked in. For the first time in weeks, I walked into my mother's house, my house without shame. The air smelled like lemon cleaner and tension. Emily wasn't there, or maybe she was hiding. It didn't matter. I passed the hallway mirror and saw myself differently. Not the desperate girl they tried to kick out, but the woman who came back with the law at her back. I stood in the living room, looked around. Everything was the same. But everything had changed. Bam! They moved out 5 days later. I came back that night to check the damage. There wasn't much, just bitterness left behind in small ways. A hole in the wall where a picture once hung. A broken chair leg. Kitchen drawers left open like a final tantrum. I documented it all, took photos, emailed Mr. Green. Then I sat on the floor, right in the middle of the living room. Mom's favorite lamp still worked. Its warm yellow glow painted everything in nostalgia. I closed my eyes and listened. Not for voices, but for memories. Her laugh in the kitchen, her slippers shuffling down the hall, her whisper, years ago you'll come back stronger, baby, I know you will. And I had, not by screaming, not by fighting, but by trusting what she left behind, a signature, a seal, a mother's last act of love. Bye. That night, I slept on the couch, no bed, no sheets, just quiet. And in the morning, I opened all the windows, let the sun in. I started scrubbing the kitchen floor with lemon soap, just like Mom used to. And for the first time in a long, long while, I felt like I belonged, not because anyone gave me permission, but because the court said it, because the law stood behind me, because the deed bore my name, because no matter how hard they tried to erase me, I was written into the foundation of this place. And I wasn't going anywhere. The sky was gray that morning, not stormy, not bright, just still, like the world itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what I would do. I stood at the edge of the driveway, clutching the cold metal key in my hand. It was the same one Mom gave me when I was 17. Back then, it came with a whispered promise. No matter where you go, you'll always have a way back. I turned it slowly in my fingers, not to stall. To remember, this was the moment. Not the courtroom, not the judgment, not the writ of possession. This right now was when I took my life back. Sam. The court officer walked beside me, silent as a shadow. He didn't need to say anything. The papers were in his hand. The law was on our side. The moment we reached the porch, I could already hear voices inside. Emily, loud, furious. I'm not leaving because that butch thinks she's got a piece of paper. And then Tom, quieter, like he'd aged overnight. Emily, it's done. I knocked once, calm, firm. The voices stopped. Then the door creaked open just enough for Emily's eyes to peek through. When she saw me, her mouth twisted. You have some nerve, she spat. The officer stepped forward. We're here to execute a court order. Emily rolled her eyes. Of course you are. She turned and walked away, leaving the door swinging open like an afterthought. Tom stood in the hallway, holding a half-packed box. He didn't say anything, just stared at the ground. I stepped inside. My footsteps echoed like thunder in the silence. I didn't gloat, didn't smile, didn't even look at them. I walked through the house slowly, room by room, like I was reclaiming it piece by piece. The living room still had Mom's couch. The kitchen still smelled faintly of lemons and dust. My old bedroom door was shut. I didn't open it yet. Instead, I walked to the window at the front of the house, the one where Mom used to drink her morning coffee, and stood there. Hands in my pockets, heart in my throat. This was mine. Not because I shouted the loudest, not because I fought the dirtiest, but because I endured, and because she made sure I'd be able to come home. The officer handed them the final notice. You have 48 hours to vacate the property. You may not remove fixtures or damage the premises. Failure to comply will result in further action. Emily scoffed. Whatever. We're leaving anyway. She pushed past me, her shoulder brushing mine on purpose. But I didn't flinch. 'Cause the girl she used to know, the girl who apologized for existing, was gone. I was steel now. Quiet steel. Tom followed behind her with a sigh. He paused in the doorway. I didn't know she put your name on it, he said. None of us did. I met his eyes for the first time in weeks. She tried to tell you. You didn't want to listen. He looked like he might say something else, but didn't. Just turned and left. The door clicked shut behind them. And then silence. Not the cold kind, not the awkward kind, but the kind that wraps around you like a soft blanket. For the first time in what felt like years, I could breathe. I sank down onto the floor in the hallway, back against the wall, and let the silence settle in every corner of the house. It wasn't empty, not really. There were echoes of laughter in the walls, memories tucked into corners, grief in the floorboards, but also love. I walked into the kitchen and opened every drawer, checked every cabinet. Emily had left a mess. Half a bag of sugar spilled under the sink, a broken wine glass shoved behind the trash bin, but nothing I couldn't fix. I rolled up my sleeves, and I started cleaning, not because I had to, because I wanted to. This was home again, and I was going to treat it like it. Ciao. By nightfall, I had scrubbed the counters, swept the floors, and opened every window to let the past out. Then I made a cup of tea, just like Mom used to. I sat by the window, steaming mug in hand, watching the streetlights blink on one by one. The house creaked like it was exhaling too, like it was grateful to finally rest. And in that moment, I didn't feel victorious. I felt whole. I didn't win by force. I didn't break them. I didn't have to, because the strongest revenge is restoration, not of property, but of self. Later that night, I walked into my old bedroom. The walls were still painted light blue. My childhood bookshelf still leaned in the corner. They hadn't touched much in here. I lay down on the bed, no sheets, no pillow, just peace. And I whispered into the dark, I'm home, Mom. There was no answer. But somehow I knew she heard me. And I slept deep, without fear, without doubt, with the key still on the nightstand beside me, the same one that opened the door to everything they tried to keep from me and could never truly take. Not again, not ever. The house was quiet now, too quiet. No slammed doors, no sarcastic laughter echoing down the hallway, no footsteps stomping upstairs like tantrums in motion. It was just me and the silence, but it wasn't empty, it was full of the kind of peace that only comes after war. I spent the next few days repairing what they left behind. Not just furniture, but energy. I patched up the drywall, replaced the broken chair, scrubbed every inch of the house until it smelled like lemon and lavender. And with every sweep of the mop, every swing of the hammer, I took back a piece of myself. They thought they could erase me by pushing me out the door. But they didn't know. You can't evict someone whose name is on the deed. And you can't erase a daughter whose mother wrote her into the foundation of her legacy. People started asking questions. The neighbors, mostly. Didn't your uncle live there? He did, I said simply. And Emily, she left. I never told them how, didn't need to. They could guess. And if they couldn't, it didn't matter. Because I wasn't here to retell the fight. I was here to rebuild the quiet. To restore what had been broken long before they ever moved in. I found Mom's photo album in the closet one morning, tucked between a box of tax records and an old quilt, wrapped in a plastic grocery bag, as if someone tried to throw it out and then changed their mind. The cover was faded red, her handwriting still on the first page. Our family, always. I sat on the floor and flipped through it slowly. There we were, me in pigtails, Mom in her big, ugly sweaters, Christmases, birthdays, random Tuesdays, and then toward the back one photo I'd never seen, me and Mom, sitting on the porch steps. She was handing me a key, and I was grinning like it was the whole world. I traced her smile with my finger. She knew, even then she knew. I took that photo, framed it, and put it on the fireplace mantel, right above the deed, not to show off. To remember, because revenge, when it's real, isn't always about destroying someone else. It's about reclaiming what was stolen, your place, your peace, your power. I didn't need to scream in their faces, didn't need to ruin their lives. They ruined themselves with arrogance, with greed, with ignorance. I just had to show up with the truth. And the truth was filed, stamped irrefutable. The truth lived in county records, in legal notices, In every letter they ignored. I didn't kick them out. The law did it for me. Months passed. The house healed slowly. So did I. I painted the living room, bought new curtains, adopted a rescue dog named Clover who liked to nap in sunbeams and bark at squirrels like they owed her rent. Life didn't go back to normal. It became something better, something earned. One Sunday afternoon, I sat on the porch with Clover at my feet, sipping coffee from Mom's old mug. A breeze passed through the wind chimes, soft, steady, and I realized this wasn't just a house anymore. It was proof that quiet doesn't mean weak, that walking away isn't surrender, that sometimes the best revenge is simply showing up, strong, still, and unmovable. I don't know where Tom and Emily ended up. Maybe they found another house to squat in. Maybe they finally realized the world doesn't owe them comfort. But I do know this. They don't live here anymore. And they never will. Because the next time someone tells me I don't belong, the next time someone tries to erase me, I'll remember this place, this moment, this silence. And I'll smile, because I didn't scream, I didn't beg, I didn't fight dirty. I just waited and let the law do what it was built to do. Protect the rightful, protect me. The woman they tried to cast out, the daughter they tried to erase, the name they overlooked on the deed, not anymore, never again.